Well, hopefully this water isn't too loud. Maybe I can block it with my body from this microphone in my hand. Put this right here. Hopefully this doesn't pick up too much creek. You can hear what I got to say. There we go. Put some microphone right in front of my face. Actually, I don't mind doing this at all. I don't mind taking a break and blasting off some emails for everybody while I'm in all these cool little remote spots. I'm basically snooping in every little creek and river I can find right now, because it's frickin' fun. It's fun and it's healthy, and it's interesting, and it's good. It's good to share all this with everybody too, right? Now, there's so many emails, you guys. I have got thousands and thousands. It's unbelievable. And but just like I was thinking before I even came out publicly about this, it's just time, right? It's about frickin' time. We put an end to the BS, an end to the question marks, the end of the everybody thinking they need proof when there is nothing but proof available, and it always has been proof. But that's not what this channel is about. This is only about the people that have seen these things, been confused, been suppressed, been belittled, been humiliated, their lives turned upside down, and nobody take them seriously. And this is also, I guess, at the same time, it's for people who have an honest curiosity for these topics too. But like I said numerous times before, if you are screaming, having a tantrum, demanding proof, or saying these are just stories, well, this isn't the channel for you. All right, this isn't for you. Now, listen to this. I was watching one of your episodes here recently, a few days ago. You're on the subject of if a person were thinking of going after you and killing one of these creatures, then it would not be a good idea. When I heard what you were saying, it occurred to me there must be a reason for you to bring this up. People are not very bright. I live on the central Colorado border with Wyoming. I have a good friend that's a serious rock hound. One day he took a friend of ours with him into an old abandoned copper mine about 15 miles from where we live. My rock hound friend is Tom. We can call the other guy Believer for the purpose of this conversation. So Tom and Believer are at the mine site, about 6-mile hike at roughly 9,800 feet in elevation. They've been there for 3.5 hours. Roughly 4:30 p.m., something starts throwing rocks that weigh around 100 pounds. The rocks are landing close to where Believer is and about 100 feet from Tom. They both have pistols, and Believer has a 12-gauge shotgun. They walk up to where the rocks came from, and there are 17-inch tracks. And that is why I named our friend Believer. He will tell you that he laughed at the prospect of Bigfoot for most of his life. He will tell you that day terrified him. And Bigfoot is very real, very big, and obviously terrifying. After discovering the footprints, they hightailed it, packed up their gear, and that is when they tried to pick up one of the rocks that were thrown from over 50 feet away, at least 100 pounds, thrown like it was nothing. All reports of these creatures show them living in groups, social groups. The likelihood of taking the life of one of these creatures is not very good. Leave them alone. There's enough room for all of us. And it'd be interesting to hear from Mr. Believer after he probably mocked and scoffed the topic for most of his life, and then unfortunately got slapped in the face with his entry ticket to the club of no return, right? Just like the rest of us. There's another one. And thank you very much for sending that email in to all of us, to share with all of us too, by the way. We really appreciate that. Hello, Steve. A while back we were talking about not being able to find good quality hats. Okay, got it. Thank you for that. Hello, Steve. My name is Isaiah. I live in northern Michigan. I just turned 13. Please don't ignore my email because of my age. Isaiah, we would never ignore your email or anybody else's, all right, buddy? Let her rip. You don't seem like the type of person would, but who knows these days. Anyways, getting to the point, I just watched your video about what happens when you shoot a Bigfoot. I can relate to the imaginary no-go line. I also have the feelings of if I shouldn't be here and should leave, but I have not seen or heard any signs of Bigfoot yet. Early today, my snowmobile broke down in the middle of a cornfield some 150 to 200 yards through some woods behind my house. I was 3/4 of the way to the far end of the field. There was more woods on either side. When I was walking back, I felt that feeling of I shouldn't be here, and I knew I had to walk back. In the back of my mind, there was that sense telling me not to go. I walked back anyways, with that sense in me the whole time. I was fine, of course. I also have this feeling when I walk out to my deer hunting blind at 5 in the morning. I don't know whether I should always listen to it, or when it feels a certain way if I shouldn't. Sometimes I can tell if it feels far away from another presence, other times it feels real and right up close. One of these times, when it didn't feel far away, when I was sitting very still in my backyard, I heard a deer walked out. I don't know if it'll help anyone, or if there are other people like this, and it'll help. Maybe you can make a video about it and see what other people know. I'm trying to help other people and find almost peace while outside. Thank you for making the channel. That has helped me and I'm sure many more. I hope it keeps going. Well, be safe. Hey, I love the hunt story videos. Could you make more? You can use my first name if you end up making a video about it. No clue if you'll ever see this email. I get that you can get to them all. I can only imagine how many emails you get, but don't feel bad about it. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Isaiah. Isaiah, thank you very much for sending that email in, buddy. We all appreciate it, and we appreciate the time it took you to do it. And in the future, like I still go out. I've seen these things, and I've had that feeling too. Sometimes it's not that bad of a feeling. You just feel what I call it pressure. I can just feel something's off. Something's off, something's around me, and I'll leave it up to me, obviously, to make that decision to leave or not. But I would suggest to everybody, actually I know, if they want you to leave, there's going to be no question about it, and you're not going to be able to fight it, I would imagine. They can impose absolute life-threatening dread squares through your soul, and you won't get confused with anything else. And obviously, I'm pretty sure 100% of all people listen to that feeling, right? And thanks again, Isaiah. Keep us posted on anything else that might happen around your neck of the woods, all right, man? Hey, Steve, I live up in Fort St. John, BC. Back in 2009, I was up the Buick Creek, mile 73 off the right, and up 110 kilometers. Up it, staying at a camp. There was a fire back there, and I was on a cat and worked a couple of days, and it rained on us. So then I went for a walk around the nearby dugout across the road from the camp, and I have a fish tank at home, so I seen a snail in front. All right, we got no periods or commas, you guys, so get ready for an awkward one. And I have a fish tank at home, so I seen a snail in front of the makeshift pallet dock. Then I put it in a container. Then I went around the lake looking for other snails. When I came around the west side of the small pond, I came upon a large track, 16.5 inches long by 4 inches wide, and the heel, the weird thing is it only had 4 toes, and one massive big toe the size of my heel, and then 3 other toes. There was 5 tracks down to the side of the dugout, all the same 4 toes. You can see where he was standing there, then crouched down to get water. There's 3 big sausage-sized finger impressions of the knuckles in the ground. He pushed off to stand back up. Then three other trucks up a little embankment. Then 3 other tracks up a little embankment. Then once he walked on undisturbed ground, there was nothing. I think the smell of the camp cooking probably draw it in. I look around the camp dumpster. I've never seen any tracks, but it was very packed down. But it was very packed down area, so they're likely they will probably grab it in the bags from the dumpsters and take off with them. Because I would be if I was starving out in the bush. Then the next day we went back towards the fire after the rain was done and went to the cats and loaded them. Before we did that, I walked around the lease and I could see old weathered tracks, 7 feet apart, just like the ones at the dugout. I went across the lease, can see with it, must have walked across the mud a couple of months back or in the springtime. I want to go up there and do some more exploring. Well, I don't think I'm doing too bad considering there isn't one period or comma in here. But anyway, here we go. Back in the day, my dad's friend was up there doing seismographing. They stayed the night, made camp. During the night, they had a fire, and there was a time when there was rocks thrown in and logs, and running, and wild animals running around and screaming around the camp. It scared the shit out of them. Somebody went for a drive to grab a rifle, came back and made a couple of shots, and then they took off for the night. Scared the hell out of them, so it might be worth going camping up there and checking it out in a few different areas. All right. Thanks for that email. I appreciate your time you took to do that. And not all of us are the smoothest writers and storytellers on paper, all right? So don't feel bad. And I think I'll pass on going up there camping myself. But one thing for certain is there has been numerous reports of these three-toed prints, four-toed prints. I haven't seen any myself. I don't know what to make of it myself, but the sounds of it, whatever that thing was, obviously it had a hand and it had a 7-foot stride and walking on 2 feet, right? So maybe it's a genetic thing. I don't know. I don't think it's that common of a trait, but obviously it's a trait. 4-toed, 3-toed feet, right? It's kind of odd. I don't know what to make of it myself, man. Hey Steve, you can share this if needed. I'll be 57 in October. I've never told this story to anyone. I was 17 and bow hunting in the North Georgia mountains. I'd went in one evening on what I'll call an old wagon trail, probably no more than a half mile from my Chevy Blazer. I'd set up a ground blind. I'm 6'6", 230 pounds, covered in a ghillie suit with Tink 69 on his cover scent or lure. Either way, I was young and dumb, not the best way to use it. Anyway, I sat there till the light was leaving, but I could still make out the opening of the wagon trail. But off to each side of it was all shadows. Was not using my flashlight, just sneaking out. About 100 yards up the trail, I started to hear some movement in the leaves. So, being the smart hunter I was, I did a couple of grunts and a grunt call on a grunt call that I had around my neck. After a couple of calls, I could hear heavy walking ahead of me to the right in the dark timber. I was watching about 25 yards ahead of me, waiting for something to cross, but it stopped right before stepping out. I started to get that sick feeling in my stomach, and I didn't want to run in the opposite direction of my truck. I knew there were black bears that had been spotted around where I was, and here I am in a ghillie suit, smelling like a deer in the rut and blowing a grunt call, and possibly a hungry bear. Not the best situation. So I went for my flashlight, shined the light up the trail, got a glimpse of red eye shine about 8 feet off the ground, and then it took 2 steps to cross the trail, walked into the darkness, around behind me, and let out a sound that almost made me piss myself. I'm willing to bet you probably really did piss yourself. Lots of people do, man. Don't feel embarrassed about it. All I remember is that the direction to my truck was clear, and I got to it and got the hell out of there and never went back. I've thought about what happened many times. I don't know what I was thinking, but I do think it knew where my truck was and gave me the opening to get to it, with a roar to help me along the way. I'll never forget that hunt. I still enjoy the woods, but if I'm bow hunting, I always have my 500 Magnum on my side with 4 speed loaders ready to go. Thank you for what you are doing. I really enjoy the emails. You are the first and only person to hear my story. Thanks, Johnny B. Well, thank you, Johnny. Thank you for sending that email and taking the time to send it. We all appreciate it. And it's something else, isn't it, everyone? How many people are emailing their story in for the very first time? How common that is here. And I think the reason why, I think I've said before, it's because it's a safe place to do it. And all of us here have had enough of the bullshit, and we put an end to it. And now we're getting the honest facts and the honest truth out in basically a frickin' tsunami of information, non-stop. It's crazy, man. It's another one. Steve, thank you for giving the people the voice and the confidence to share their experiences. I too had experiences with these things that only can be described as Bigfoot or wild men. I would never have believed that these things were way down south here in San Diego if I had not seen one for myself. After my sighting in North County, I look back at my childhood of hiking and fishing and realized they've probably been here all along. My first encounter happened about 35 to 40 years ago when I was around 13 or 14 years old. It was summertime. I went outside and noticed it was a full moon at night. I asked my brothers if they wanted to go bass fishing. My little brother agreed to go. My mother was concerned, but I told her that I would watch out for him. We headed out for the 2 to 3 mile hike through the neighborhoods and up into the hills to a local farm pond. On the way, we encountered a stray dog. I told my brother not to touch him because we'd be stuck with him all night. It was a lab mix, and I know they love water, and he would ruin our fishing hole. But it was too late. Sure enough, the dog followed us all the way to the pond, and we could not get rid of him. As we hiked down the hill, the dog shot past me in a flash and, running at full speed, jumped into the water, chased after the mud hens. I was furious. This is one of the only clear shorelines we could fish. The pond is surrounded by cattails and heavy, thick, overgrown brush and trees. I finally got the dog out of the water, and to make matters worse, he shook his wet coat all over us. I was really pissed and finally was able to run the dog off. We began fishing with no bites. Every now and then, we would hear a dog bushwhacking around the pond chasing ducks. Suddenly, we heard what sounded like coyotes, but it didn't quite sound right. It almost sounded like something making sounds to imitate a pack of coyotes down in the canyon. It sounded like they were heading our way. I told my brother, the dog better get over here or he could wind up as dinner. Sure enough, 5 to 10 minutes later we heard a bark or a growl, then a yelp, and then a sudden crashing noise in the dry cattails, and then silence. This all happened in a matter of a couple seconds. Over on the other side of the pond, kitty corner to our location. It didn't quite sound right to me for a coyote attacking a dog, but I shrugged it off and told my brother it looks like the coyotes got the dog. After a few minutes we started hearing the dog whimpering and whining and on, and whining off and on. None of this is making sense. Why would the coyotes injure the dog and not kill it or eat it? I didn't even hear the dog put up a fight. It just sounded like something picked up the dog and threw it into the cattails, but that didn't make any sense. My brother kept asking me to help the dog, but I was still pretty upset at the dog for ruining our fishing hole. We hadn't had one bite, and we had been fishing for about an hour or so now, since the time we had first arrived. Finally, he said it was me or him, so I told him to stay put, and I go check on the dog. As I bushwhacked and made my way around to the other side of the pond, following hiking trails and game trails, I suddenly picked up on the slight movement of something stalking me. It was about 20 yards above me and was paralleling me. I stopped suddenly and heard it take another step. This was a person. It was on 2 feet. I laughed out loud to let him know I'd caught them, and the jig was up, but only silence. I said, "Hey, who is that?" But got no reply, only silence. I thought this was very odd, but continued for a short distance around the corner of the pond and through some very thick cattails. I came to the dam section of the pond. It looked like an old trail that was overgrown with many years of non-use. The cattails and bushes hung over. I peeked inside it, opened it up like a tunnel, underneath all of the overgrowth. I began to get ready to crawl through when all of a sudden I noticed that it had gone completely silent. All the sounds of the ponds, insects, and animal life was gone. It was like someone turned off a switch. I don't want my nerves to get the best of me. I rarely even carried a flashlight at night, but instead would walk with one eye closed and switch eyes occasionally to keep my night vision sharp. I closed my eyes to let them adjust to the low-light condition of the tunnel and said in a silent prayer in my head to God for my protection. As I made my way crawling through and knocking through the spider webs down in front of me, I suddenly realized that the exit point looked like it would make a great ambush point for someone or something that was stalking me. I decided to do a small cougar scream to see if anything would jump up and spook. I did a light, soft scream, compared to my regular loud cougar scream that I would use on my friends while hiking in the woods to scare them. LOL. Nothing happened. I made my way out and around to where the sound of the dogs whining had come from, looking for blood or fur or any other sign of a struggle, but couldn't find anything. I called and whistled for the dog, and then finally saw it. The dog was out in the water about 20 to 30 feet from the shoreline, lying on top of the dead brown cattails, but silent. I wondered how it got out there, as I could not see any sign where it entered. I called to it, but it would not move. I would have to go through a nearly impassable tule patch to get way out there, which made sense as to what I had heard, but I blew it off. As I made my way out over the tules, my feet would slip through the gaps of the tule, and I would get stuck. I ended up having to half crawl, swim over the cattails, floating like a lizard on my belly until I reached the dog. I felt around the dog, looking for injuries, figured it must have been hung up on fishing line or something, but there was nothing wrong with the dog, and he was very happy to see me, but he seemed scared to death. He would not even make any noises. He was laying on top of the brown bed of dead cattails with all 4 of his legs stuck down in between the cattails, with his legs dangling down into the water. I pulled his front paws up on top of the tules, grabbed his collar, started dragging him over the top of the tules, and slithered and crawled back to shore. As we started walking back, I suddenly got a cold chill. I was not cold, but something was giving me this cold, chilled, scary feeling, like I was being watched. I shook it off and we made our way back over to my brother. He was quite worried about how long I'd been gone. We began fishing again and the dog suddenly vanished. I don't know where he went, but he must have ran off. We continued fishing, and occasionally I would hear small pebbles being thrown in the pond, like someone's trying to make us think that the fish were jumping, but I could tell the difference. I looked around and got very uncomfortable feeling, like we were being watched and should not be there. I quickly told my brother it was time to go. We walked home, but nothing else happening. 30 years later, I ended up having a Bigfoot sighting about a mile from that same pond. When I look back on that night, I believe that one of these hairy beings had grabbed up that dog and threw him out in the cattails to use the dog as bait to get one of us to come over so they could separate us and grab me. Perhaps the Sasquatch beings changed their mind or God protected me. I don't know. This has been a long email. I'll continue, and you can break this up into 2 different emails if you want. So about 4 to 5 years ago, I woke up at 3 a.m. to go bass fishing, loaded up the truck and headed out. I usually coast down the road in neutral on my way out to let the truck warm up. I rolled through the stop sign without stopping. As I turned left, I noticed a giant dude crossing the road, but he wasn't moving. He was frozen perfectly still mid-step. I watched him for a couple of seconds and then glanced to my right, as I had previously planned on pulling over and grabbing a drink out of the cooler. When I glanced back down the road, the person was gone. It was a full moon night and the person was backlit, so all I'd seen was a black silhouette. As I got out of the truck and grabbed a drink out of the cooler, it started to sink in. What the hell did I just see? The silhouette of this person looked to be a massive, muscle-bound maniac. There was no neck and no signs of clothing. I got back in the truck and was replaying what I'd seen in my mind. This is very strange. Why did he freeze? Well, in the middle of crossing the road. Why did he have no signs of clothing on? And who is this massive, ripped dude? The main thing that stood out to me was the muscles. There was nothing for me to compare to his height to, so I'd imagine he was at a minimum of around 6 to 7 feet tall. His silhouette went from the top of his head down at about a 45-degree angle to his shoulders, and then out from there to his massive broad shoulders. They looked like rounded volleyballs. Every part of his silhouette was just massive muscles. His waist came to a V shape compared to his broad shoulders. This guy was about 30 to 40 yards away, and I got a really good look at his silhouette. I drove down the road and stopped, looked in the direction that he was headed, down into the overgrown ditch area that is covered in thick trees and bushes. I made some whoops and bird calls, and then got a chill down my spine. I quickly rolled up the windows and took off. This thing looked like the classic Sasquatch build. His entire body bulged with muscles. Prior to my sighting, I'd recently been getting into watching Sasquatch videos on YouTube. Every day on my drive home, I'd look into these overgrown dark areas in the bushes and trees, wondering if they were actually down here in SoCal, in Southern California also. I'd been having some strange occurrences while fishing and hiking that seemed to fit the classic Sasquatch behavior. I had also seen possible signs and tree structures in the area. Thinking back, perhaps the day watchers / young'uns had noticed my behavior, and this Sasquatch may have showed himself to me on purpose, or perhaps the sighting was just by chance. After this sighting, they started coming around my house at night. I could smell them like a skunky BO and rotten meat. They would tap on the door on the walls at night, trying to get me out to come out. Sometimes I'd turn off the motion detector lights and go outside on the porch in my tighty whities. I ended up having many different strange interactions with them over the course of a year, but nothing direct. They would always interact with me by using different sounds and objects like bird calls, sticks, and rocks. I'll try to detail these strange encounters in a separate email and send them to you. What I got from my interaction with them is that, number one, they are extremely intelligent. I would say that they are as smart as us, but choose not to or cannot deal with technology. They seem to be a hybrid mixed with the animal kingdom. Number two, they have a language and use many different types of language, like sign language or Morse code. Number three, they watch us and know us. They know our behaviors and how to manipulate or trick us. They seem very playful, but some of them seem very deadly. I've learned a respect for them and do not cross their log boundaries, the blocked off areas they have made. They mark them with broken branches. I feel like they have sent me a few different invitations to come and meet with them, but I don't want to end up like in a David Plaitis' book. Maybe one day. Thanks again, Dan. Wow. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. And It's funny, I've had you hear a lot of people mention that they think they were being herded into an ambush or possibly lured into an ambush. But what I would say as a lifelong hunter myself, and knowing I know a fair bit about these things and how they outclass us. These beings don't need to try to hurt us or try to ambush us. Not human beings. They just don't. If these beings want your ass, it's just going to come and take it. That's all there is to it. They are too far skilled to have to use ambush or subtle maneuvers to take down a human being if that's exactly what they were about. So it sounds like this thing was just getting his kicks playing with you. Bit of a sick and twisted mind to do that to children, but thank God you or your brother didn't go missing, right? You gotta wonder how many people have gone missing that may possibly have something to do with some of these beings or offshoots of these beings too, right? Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, there you go, you guys. There is a bunch more. See anything sneaking up behind me yet? Probably not. Well, I'm going to go for my late afternoon shift of casting my fishing rod into that sweet steelhead pool that's through the forest that way a few hundred yards. Oh man, of course my leg fell asleep sitting on this log. Shit. Oh, damn.